You all the people in the back, can you hear me? Can you hear me good? Oh, this is good. Have you heard what I would just have been saying when pictures have been taken of me? No, and you haven't understood a word, which is good. So, welcome everybody in cinema number 7 of Code Talks 2022. I'm Stefan Adolf, and I'm really glad to have all of you here in the audience, and I'm really glad to have this fine selection of people on this panel on Web3, because this is the first time ever that we are here, that we're having a Web3 panel on this conference. Who has been to Code Talks 2019? Yeah. Have you been, I mean, at that time blockchains and everything weren't a big thing. For everybody here in the audience, I assume you are not sitting here because you're totally bored and all other cinemas are packed. Who of you is truly interested in the blockchain ecosystem? Many of you, and this is exactly why we're here and trying to entertain you about that. So, let me quickly introduce our very fine panelists. To my right is Mirko Mollik. He is here from Gelsenkirchen. He's the founder and CEO of TrustSets, which is an SSI company. He's actually building his own blockchain, but I think he's going to introduce himself in a minute as well, a little bit. And next to him we have Matthew Fontana from Streamer. He's actually from Switzerland. I mean, you're not from Switzerland, but living in Switzerland, right? Very nice. Streamer is a company that allows you to stream data in a decentralized way. He has been having his talk yesterday on building a decentralized pub sub. I don't know if anybody of you has seen that yesterday, but I think this is an awesome thing to review on video as well. To the right of Matt, there is Anna Graf, and thank you for joining us today. Anna Graf is a very well-known person in the NFT and in the Web3 space. Everybody in Berlin is actually talking about her. You cannot imagine that. So she's really a celebrity. She doesn't know that, and she wouldn't say that. But I'm really happy to have you here. She's working for no, I may not say something wrong. Avato Systems. Oh my God, I have the right one.
Absolutely right.
Lucky, very good. Right of Anna Graf is Martin EL-Khouri, who is actually also joining from a Bertelsmann company. He is, no, this is really, I got out of order, very sorry. You are the senior director of Bertelsmann Investments and joined pretty shortly, on short announcement notice actually. And I'm very happy to have you here because you have seen so many Web3 projects in the world and you are actually taking care of all the aspects of Web3. And to open this panel, I would like to ask a very simple question, which is a little bit unexpected maybe. What is the most rigid misunderstanding of Web3 technology? So what is totally misunderstood, and many people just ask the question. Your take, maybe we start with Martin.
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much for having me. It's a big pleasure. And actually I would like to refer to a talk I gave a few days ago in Cologne on Digital X. And there was a discussion about sustainability and many interesting projects where I saw so much potential to put them or to use the infrastructure layer of Web3, of blockchain, in order to apply these business models. And many of them would be saying for them blockchain is unnecessary, mainly because of the fact that it's kind of harming the environment so heavily. And I think for me that is probably the biggest misunderstanding, because it's one of the hindering aspects for mass adoption. Because people have the perception that regardless of the type of blockchain that you choose, you will be kind of causing damage. And even if people know that they wouldn't be causing damage, they would be afraid of, let's say, the consequences of this, let's say, bad storytelling in the space. And this is definitely one of the prejudices that I would like to, in the community to kind of get rid of, because it's simply not true. And there's so much innovation happening, making it more efficient than the technologies we have at hand.
Have you got a very prominent example for this kind of misunderstanding?
A concrete example for that? I mean, there was a company that actually used kind of a token framework for what they were offering. Basically, it was a sustainability project that wanted to introduce a reward ecosystem, reward mechanism for their clients, and I would see such a big value proposition in kind of using that decentralized layer to make this token valuable in its actual sense, but they wouldn't want to do that. And I think the biggest misunderstanding is that not every cryptocurrency is based on a proof of work mechanism. There is plenty of alternatives. The biggest ecosystem has now quite successfully managed to transform in its inner architecture. And I think there is plenty of other alternatives that are even more efficient when it comes to environmental aspects.
Thank you. I fully agree, and this has also been one of the biggest issues in my work so far. I started as director NFT in the space, so I'm well connected with the art space, and I often heard like NFTs are just JPEGs, NFTs are a scam. And this is what basically people now connect with the Web3 space. And this is such a pity because, yes, in 2021 we had this hype around NFTs, and of course there was a lot of bad players coming in there just because of the money. But blockchain technology has been existing so much longer now. We know Bitcoin since 2009, and the preparation for the technology has already existed, I think, since the 1970s, 80s. So it's really something people try to find a solution, a decentralized solution for problems that are out there in the world. And I think we will go into this further also later at our talk at 2 o'clock, and just see that it's a lot more. Of course, there has been a lot of successful projects. Maybe you know the CryptoPunks or the Bored Ape Yacht Club, which have been very prominent and also found their way into, I would say, pop culture and also connecting with brands. So even there you see a lot more utilities than just the JPEG. And I think this is one of the big misunderstandings why most companies also doesn't use the word NFTs no more. It's the technology, but we can put everything on the technology we want, basically. And this does not only go into art. Art was the catalyst for many things because art is always innovative. They try a lot. But now we discover what other opportunities there are, and so I'm very thankful for your example here, and there are a lot more.
Yeah, totally agree with the themes. I think one kind of meta point about Web3 is a lot of the time I hear it's just a big bubble, and there are elements of this kind of bubbling, but the bubble kind of bursts, and then there's a new bubble that forms, and this cycle of boom and bust keeps repeating. But what perhaps is not well understood is that the base is slowly getting bigger and bigger. So I think this is the biggest misconception at the moment.
Yeah, I can add to that. There's a lot of people just looking in the short run when looking at Web3. They think, okay, it's here. I see NFTs, I see crypto, I get rich in 4 or 5 weeks. I have never to work again until I die with a caipirinha on the beach, etc. And that's not the case, because right now we are using cloud. We transferred from on-premise, from a decentralized world with paper on-premise systems to the cloud, because the cloud is very easy to use. You can spin up a VM in some seconds at AWS all around the globe, use a Cloudflare as a content delivery network, but this will make you dependent on these monoliths. And you have to act now to decentralize again, which takes back a lot of responsibility to you, because you have, for example, if you using a blockchain, on the one hand, you have to say, okay, this technology is new, it's not bulletproof. Let's say this way, centralized systems are far out there, PKIs, etc., used in the industry, certified, etc., accepted by the law. So, and this is not the case with blockchain. I hope we will get there in the future, but we have to act now to ask ourselves, how do we want to form Web3? There will be some centralized services, there will be some decentralized services, but we have to check out, okay, what are the benefits of both ways? And I think in the best way, Web3 is a mixture of both systems.
So you would say the misconception, misunderstanding is that not everything that claims to be decentralized is decentralized.
Exactly. For example, if you say we had the talk with Adrian in Cinema 8, he said all your credentials are on your wallet. So you're responsible for this. It's not Facebook, not Google hosting in their data center, and you click on a share button. It's very easy to use, but when you are on a smartphone and it got hacked or your display shatters, all your credentials are lost. And then the whole process, know it if you lost your briefcase, you have to go to every issuer again to issue your credentials, and you can hope that this the issuer's instance is still or still exists. For example, if the school shut down, or you made performed a course to got a certification from Cisco, etc., and the company doesn't exist anymore, you can get in trouble when you have to look at this right now. And we all saw the guys running around on dumpsters, etc., searching their USB drive because they had a private key of their wallet on this. And Web3 is not only cryptocurrency, but your whole identity. And if your whole identity gets lost, who are you then?
Since we are most likely having quite a technical audience here, and we're talking about identity here, I assume, identity is a really big word, right? And in Web3 space, this is actually one of my takes on misconception in Web3. Identity is sometimes misunderstood as the public key that has been generated by the private key that is stored in your wallet. And of course, this is not your identity, but it feels sometimes. And as you just said, it can get lost anytime. But I know, so since this is a talk about the inside, we try to give some inside views on what's happening right now. Do any of you have any good idea on how identity can be presented on Web3 technology better than just as a private key? Maybe you would like to start, Anna?
Well, I would start from the perspective that there are different layers to a digital identity. There's your identity that you want to present, like for example in the metaverse, you want to have the fancy clothes, you want maybe a different skin, or you don't even want to be a human being anymore, you want to be an ape, who knows? And this is one big part of this whole identity we're creating right now. And you can also have multiple identities. So this is the benefit of the metaverse that is kind of infinite. And then we have the other layer that comes more from the technical part with how do I really store and save my data, and who is allowed to see my data. Because at the moment, this is centralized. If I say yes, 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 I always click yes to everything. Okay, then they can have all my data. They do whatever they want. Hopefully good things, not bad things, you don't know. But for the first time, we have the chance to get this data back, whether it's a soulbound token or whatever, and we are the one who are allowed to distribute it to where we want to distribute it. And I think these different layers will work together in this perfect world that we still imagine, that we don't know how to get to, but this is why we're sitting here, why we're building, also from the big companies together with the startups. And I'm very curious to see, because we were talking about this up front, and this goes so much deeper, this topic, and it's one of my favorite.
Yeah, maybe I just lose a few words on kind of the macroeconomic impacts that this topic actually has, because when we speak about the verge of a new internet, then we kind of throw in the assumption that something is fundamentally changing. And the blockchain technology, or the blockchain itself, basically only solves one problem. I think we need to understand that it's kind of the digital double spend problem without the need for an intermediary. But as a consequence of that, so much happens. Like if you look at Africa, for instance, or globally, you have 25% of the people worldwide that actually don't have a real identity. There is, in Africa, more people that don't have a bank account, but many people that don't have this bank account actually have access to the internet. So this whole idea of applying blockchain technology is actually a topic that can change the way societies function, because you kind of give people, individuals, the accountability for everything they do, which is changing. So you can kind of take away responsibility from a probably malicious government and put it on a decentralized layer, giving people access, giving people control, helping them to achieve a certain sense of financial inclusion. And this is nothing less than revolutionary in practice. And I think this is where this whole identity topic becomes so relevant, because it's kind of a fundamentally new approach of how to actually leverage economic potential. And the African market is one example, Southeast Asia is another example, and even if you look at far more developed countries like India, like China, there will be so many use cases to apply that, and that is why I think that is extremely important.
one thing that just entered my mind was if you are using an identity on the blockchain, if you're using an identity anywhere to log in or to authenticate, usually this also comes with lots of data that is maybe that you could correlate or something. And this is why I'm happy to have Matthew actually on stage. Wait a second, because your company is dealing with so much data that is actually not, I guess, used or created by humans more or less. It's more by machines, if I understood that right. But it's still an issue, right? So how does a streamer or in your world, how are you dealing with identity and authentication?
Yeah, well, owning your own data is quite a cliche. We really need the technology, the infrastructure to enable us to fill that sovereignty. So the identity layer that we actually use is just the public key from Ethereum. But what I think is really powerful about Streamer and the kind of core part of Streamer is that every single data point that comes from you, every single message that you send is cryptographically signed by the private key that only you have control of. And so if you are giving rich consent to a third party to share your data, you can immediately revoke that consent at any time. And these sort of powerful primitives start to bubble up quite quickly into more less exploitive ways of communicating and interacting on the internet.
But from a user's perspective, I guess this is adding implications to the UX, right? So I think it's more complex. You have to deal with more information or with more stuff that you are storing on your side, and you have to be aware that you are in control now, and you have to handle it somehow, right?
Yeah. UX and security, decentralization, they're at constant odds all the time. So imagine every message that you send on, say, WhatsApp, it asks you do you want to sign this message? We really want to avoid this kind of friction, so we need to find ways of cleverly, progressively reducing the ways that our data can be mishandled, but still keep the fluidness of a Web 2 experience, and that's the big challenge that we face. Yeah.
And maybe one key to that is SSI. Like, I don't know if you know the term, but let's write that out. It's self-sovereign identity. It's actually quite a big topic here in Germany as well. And if I see that right, there's actually one guy standing in the very back at the door who's dealing with that. He just gave a great talk on this. Now you're doing that. Adrian, I see you there. And the next one who is also on this conference is Mirko, who deals a lot with SSI that might have some solutions for exactly those problems. Could you explain something about that, Mirko?
Exactly, but before there's a little fun fact, because when you're looking up something, a definition, self-sovereign identity, you mostly go to Wikipedia, and there is one of the biggest misconceptions there by the EU. So they are violating their own GDPR law, because they say, well, when you get a credential, the issuer has a public identifier, which is okay. There's no conflict that this should be limited by anyone, so you can put it on the blockchain. But then they say in the graphic, also the holder, a person, has a public available identifier, and there the GDPR kicks in. And in some countries, GDPR is not a thing, where a lot of SSI startups are very grateful for, because they say, well, there's no law blocking us for disruption. But in Germany, you have to be very carefully publishing things, and with blockchain is the biggest advantage and disadvantage: you cannot delete things. You have the technical trust. Something that is ever written there will never get deleted, so you can trust on it, and it is linked and put on a distributed network. But when you're in conflict with the law, the lawyer says, well, I don't care about the technology you are using. If you have written something there and it has to be deleted by the law, it could be GDPR, it could be StGB. In the case, you can go even to jail if you are not able to delete it. And this is a big challenge in the SSI world, because it would be so easy to use the public Ethereum network. I don't have to care about the infrastructure. It's very robust. It got very environment friendly. But we have to think about this case. Well, we cannot treat all identities the same. When I have a fridge, for example, I can put the fridge on the blockchain, and the fridge doesn't even need a private key because I want to decide what's inside the fridge. I don't want that my fridge order say, oh, today I want to order milk for the humans in the house I am. So it's very difficult, and I love that there's a lot of startups, corporates are dealing, as Adrian told it, also a lot of German corporates are dealing with it. But we have the same problem we had with cryptocurrency. A lot of is spreading out right now. We have over 80 different identifiers. So when you're going to your developer and you say, well, we want to implement a wallet. Here, please implement these 80 identifiers. Well, yeah, the SDK is not even available in your programming language. You have to do it yourself. Then you have different transport protocols. It's not HTTP. It's some sort. We have DITCOM1, DITCOM2, OpenID Connect, I think over 8 different protocols which are not compatible to each other. Very nice for developing. And then for the credentials, you have ANA credentials, verifiable credentials, a mobile driver license, X509. So a lot of things that is moving on. So it's very frustrating as a developer right now to develop something in the SSI space, because then you're going to the customers and they say, well, I need a software as a service solution, but as a cloud. And you think, well, if I'm in control of your private key, that's not the SSI world. So it's challenging how you can go to the market as a startup, but it's getting
Can I just add
Absolutely.
on to this? Thank you. Because this is so interesting. In Germany, we want to really do it right. Other countries just come up with solutions and they work or they don't work. And this is maybe also the misunderstanding why many people feel it's kind of dangerous. Because I think that we also, as Avata Systems, when we go into the space, we have the responsibility to do it right, to be a trusted partner. So in this way, having all these thoughts and then maybe coming up with a solution later, but then in the right way, I think this will pave the way for companies to really feel safe with using the technology. So it's frustrating, but I think super, super, super important.
And without spoiling here, we actually have 2 talks scheduled for today, 2 p.m. Now, unfortunately, you have like conflicting time slots. We just noticed that. But if you're interested in hearing more about SSI, Mirko is going to tell you at 2 p.m. in, don't do this wrong, not in Cinema 8. And you on Cinema 4, right? With the people? No, you on 8.
I thought we are 8.
This is what I also. This is what's written on my phone. I think you're wrong, Mirko. Don't. Okay, so you will see that.
Together.
Yeah, right. Why not? I think you guys are talking about value, or the reevaluation of value on blockchains or on decentralized technology in general. You're talking about the ins and outs of SSI and the failed start in Germany. So if anybody's interested about that whole identity thing, they are absolutely good at Kino 4, I guess, at 2. And if you want to listen to hear something about the value on blockchains, it's Kino 8. I would like to switch over a little bit to that value discussion. And get back Matthew into the discussion. So I think this is what many. So 10 years ago, everybody said data is the new oil, right? This is what was this. It's a phrase that was going around, and nobody's saying that anymore. But and on the other hand, data on chains is created by, I don't know, tokens and NFTs and everything. I know that both sides of that thing don't go together that well. But I would like to have you say some words about the value of data and why your company is dealing with that and how this is monetizable.
Yeah, so Streamer is working on off-chain data, and we can be the first mile of decentralized data transport towards an oracle which can provide that data on-chain and do some interesting things with this. So an example of this, I think it's a great one, is a project called Demo in our ecosystem, and what they're doing is they have a Raspberry Pi style device, plugs into the car, that data, that oil from the data oil is coming into the Raspberry Pi, it's being cryptographically signed, pushed into the Streamer network, and it's being monetized. So you get this drive to earn experience while pretty much just plugging in a device, and I think that's a fantastic thing. So in this scenario, Streamer is the data pipeline for the oil to come through, and you can provide your consent over which kinds of data starts to flow through those value systems. And what I think is quite powerful as well is that, you take a trip and this trip is very special to you. You can mint an NFT, and that NFT is correlated, it's matched, it's combined with the data, the real data coming from that trip, coming from the car driving around those roads. So in the blockchain, in Web3, everything is composable, and I think this is a great example of data flowing through decentralized systems. NFTs come into play, access control policies, and at the end of the day, the user is just driving around, or the driver is driving, and they're making a new income.
If you don't mind, I just would like to underline one statement you just did there, and it's composability. As a developer, I can tell you, I mean, I'm as a person, I'm excited about so many things on blockchains and about Web3 in general. But one thing that, as a developer, I can tell you is so awesome if you notice, if you understand that for the first time, that you can just build on other things that other people have built, and everything of those cannot change. They cannot change any API URLs or anything. They are just on chain, so you can build. This is how we refer to it. You can build on Lego blocks that are built on chain, and you can stick everything, or you can put everything together to new products. And we are still at the very beginning, because many developers at the moment just understand how to write smart contracts. Then you have a contract, everything's fine. You don't even know that there are millions of contracts out there just waiting to be composed to new technology. And this is super awesome, particularly in the DeFi space. Do you want to say something on this one?
Yeah, because you are, let's say, in the positive way, but I'm more a fan of showing also the other side. When I don't know exact domain, when you go to the domain, I think Web3 is going great .com. They are showing different scenarios from the past. And on the right side, you see how many money was lost in the terms. And I don't want to spoiler it, but after this, you are next to drinking 5 beers. It's horrible.
You say so. Martin, I know that you're also in the investment space. If you hear all the statements we just have heard, I mean, what is currently going on there? Is there money in the market? Are people, I don't know, investing in this one? Is that actually your topic?
Yes, I mean, so we operate via funds, and I'll speak about that later because I don't want to dive too much into detail. But I mean, if you look at the macroeconomic situation, I would say risky assets of any type, probably even assets of any type, are not that kind of prominent at the moment, so people are very careful with how they are spending their money, but that doesn't count for the Web3 space. And if you see how much money is actually flooding the market, coming from big VCs, coming from corporates, coming from financial institutions, all the big major VC funds in Web3 are actually fundraising right now, have really found the sweet spot, because everything is just so cheap. And I think when we speak about reevaluating value, we can have an opinion about these big institutions, and I would say I agree with many of the points, but they are not stupid, right? So they definitely see that there is a new infrastructure layer emerging that is not kind of being built to satisfy the need of some creatives. It's actually changing the way business is done, the same way cloud technology changed the way business is done. It changes the way how verticals are actually seen from a business perspective. It changes how you monetize your businesses. And that is why there is so much happening. I wouldn't feel comfortable kind of highlighting one or two. There is plenty of startups, there's plenty of ecosystems that have a tremendously strong value proposition. I think one of the biggest industry definitely is the financial industry. To give you one example, look at the remittance market. 13% of the GDP of the Philippines approximately is remittance. That can be disrupted immediately. So if you speak about re-evaluating value, it's really about taking a process that already exists. The, let's say, revenue pool doesn't change, but what changes is that there are less necessary intermediaries that kind of take a part or a share of that revenue. And now even the content industry, I mean, this is probably one of the biggest examples, but in both of these examples, what happens is that those that actually add value to something, and this is why kind of we've coined this term re-evaluating value, those that actually are adding value are rewarded the most. And the two, let's say, parties that do add value, simply speaking, are the ones that offer the service and the ones that consume it. Those should be kind of the main stakeholders in every process. So this is why I would say it's really a new user-centric internet that is kind of being developed at the moment, which is a big revolution.
And this is why we call about the creator economy, because it gives back more to the creator also on the secondary or infinite market, which has not happened before in that way. That was quite revolutionary, for example, for the art market, because usually you sell once, and then there is kind of secondary market that you can participate in, but it's very complicated. And blockchain makes it so easy with royalties. Well, there are some marketplaces who don't pay them, but nonetheless, the system and the idea of getting like a passive income for what you have done once is quite fair in my opinion. Also for memes. I mean, memes were used like millions, billions, I don't know how many times, and the creator never ever had any revenue from this. So kind of participating even with a very small amount or token is kind of a way to give back.
We are already very close to the end of our official time. Actually, this is why I would like to just close that with the closing notice, and then I think we're going over to the Q&A session, right? Not that I'm getting something wrong here. Maybe just just give a very short answer on this one. What is now? This is a little break, right? So, what is the technology that you would bet on if you could just start a startup? I give you $1 million today, okay? What would you build today if I tell you you have to be done by next year exactly the same day?
1 million is definitely not enough.
Okay, if you $10 million, if 10 million.
I think it would be a solid independent infrastructure, because if you don't have a solid infrastructure, everything you build on top will fall down. So if we are not able to build this one, and I don't think it will be just the Ethereum layer. I hope we have a solid layer once, a standardized protocol, and everyone can build.
So you're building a new blockchain, and you're investing 10 million in Solana or something.
I would build a new one, because there isn't Solana is not the perfect solution for identity.
That was an example. Sorry, I understand. Yeah. Matthew.
A decentralized wireless network. I think the Helium project is probably nailing it, and I hope others join the space and
Google that.
Yeah, create these coverage networks that can provide real value. And yeah.
Anna, I give you $10 million.
I go for the product side. I would love some glasses that let me enter into the metaverse without having these VR goggles, and really have the experience for the customer, so that it's immersive, educating, and fun to be there, because I think this is still really lacking. And I'm hoping for Apple glasses. Again, I have to say, if Apple comes up with that device next year, this will be kind of, we are still like looking for that thing that will really open up this. And it was the iPhone in the first place for Web 2, I would say. So let's see what we come up with for Web 3.
I would need a few billions. Can you give me that?
I can borrow.
That's good. Okay, so yeah, what I would do is actually I would buy access to major stakeholders. I wouldn't build anything. And the reason is that the beauty of Web3 is that everybody can contribute, and that all the great minds in the world that really kind of put their minds to doing something, to changing the way the internet is architected to find solutions, they have access to do that, and they have an incentive to do that because they are freeing up so much money. So what I would really do is I would try to convince all the major stakeholders on a corporate level, on a political level, to set a new, let's say, regulatory infrastructure to allow them to do that freely, to allow them to kind of liberate their ideas, work in the space, and then ultimately to get rid of all these misconceptions, because they are what is hindering mass adoption. That is what I would do.
So the idea is to have $1 billion to bribe the government.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, we can manage that. With that, I would. Do you have a very short point, Mirko? Because he was.
Yeah, because you had mentioned a very good point. Because the technology of Web3, the most important technology, is all open source. This was not the case for Web 2. There's closed source, Microsoft, etc. But with Web3, everything is open source, so every one of you can contribute for it. You can build your commercial products on top, but you can help to define it. And I really like this, because then we can go decentralized again and not have this one global power controlling us. And this is pure democracy.